Oh, you got to move it forward there, please. I was trying to move it forward and I don't have that ability. Oh, look at this. We're going to check some feedback of how people's days are going. You could just put your hand up, I guess, but you don't have 6 fingers. How is,
You don't have 6
how is
fingers?
your day going today? I know it's almost done, but we got 1 doing great, 2 made it through. Maybe we're gonna put this in the chat. 3
Yeah, put a
doing
number.
so-so.
6.
The
Okay.
touchy subject is 4. Do I have to say it's 5? And no. God, no, don't talk about it, would be 6.
We're just
So
doing
we're checking in here on our students. Oh, we got a
Okay.
3.
Enid's
We
a
got
3.
a 6. Oh,
Tracy's a
we got a
6.
6 in there.
Oh,
Wow, I wasn't expecting
Tony's
a 6.
3. Okay,
Got
feel
a
free to
3
type
over
it in the
here.
chat too. Yeah.
8.
Oh, that's not good.
Is that because we can't get your recording situation figured out, Ann? I'm sorry. Wow, she's declared bankruptcy over there at 8. Wow,
Yes.
wasn't expecting the 8. So just a way that you can kind of check in on your students as they come in. We wanted to have a little fun as we started this here today. We're going to come back to this later with a different example. Our 4 objectives up here today are: 1, to analyze the role of effective feedback in the FQAS framework and the 4 T's of feedback. On the bottom, you're going to see, because I just didn't want to put the 4 T's up there, not tease you with them. We got timing, we got type, we got tiered, and we got tailored. So then our second one is identify and use Blackboard Ultra feedback tools. So we're going to look at some of the feedback tools, and there's actually some new cool things that are in there for you to provide responsive, meaningful feedback in multiple formats. And then we're going to identify specific steps to guide students on how and where to access feedback within Blackboard. And then we want you to identify one of the 4 T's that is maybe underutilized in your course and make a goal to integrate it further. All right, so here's some questions, and we would appreciate some discussion on that if you feel moved to say some things that maybe are on your mind. What are ways that you provide feedback to your students? That could be in a My Ed Choice classroom, working with teams. What are ways using Blackboard? What are the different ways that you guys provide feedback to your students?
Directly on an assignment.
Directly on assignment within Blackboard?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Like an annotation on it, right? Or like in the feedback box.
Both.
Both,
Okay. Okay.
depending on the kind of assignment.
Okay. And then Adam is raising his hand too.
Oh, I was going to say, in addition to the assignments, discussion boards are really great for just like open comments.
Yep, absolutely. And feedback from peers too, right? Yep. And then
Christy's up there next.
Yeah, based on the rubric in Blackboard. So the comment section and then comments within the rubric.
Nice.
Okay. You're working on, some of you people that work with students on hands-on work. Are you giving feedback as they're working through things, how to improve, how to do, working through the math? Yeah.
So like with me, it's instant feedback. I tell them as we're doing projects, as we're doing that stuff. It's an instant feedback thing.
I was going to say the same thing, especially with our competencies. We have one-on-one time with our students, which gives us a lot of time to give them feedback and to, kind of counsel them if you wish.
Yeah, for math, it's fun for me because a lot of times I will set up a student to try and get them to give me wrong answers so that I can sort of say, oh, here's a very classic mistake. I'm glad you made that mistake here in class and not on the homework, and show them where they went wrong, and then have them do the next problem where it's basically the same thing. And they're like, okay, you can't trick me twice. And I'm like, sweet. Okay.
But then you get some feedback for the masses too.
Yeah.
I really like that because you're correcting an error early on so that it doesn't become habitual and ingrained and the student just keeps doing it, right?
Amen.
Because that can happen really easily with students,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Especially.
Yes. In Spanish as well. You would see the same patterns and the same mistakes. And it was really hard to correct it if you didn't address it really early on. I agree.
So the next question is, how much time do you estimate or think do you spend on feedback per week? Do you actually? A lot of us don't even think about that because it's coming in various ways.
You mean outside of the classroom?
You can take it how you want.
Yeah.
Combined, yeah. Mhm.
Do we have a hand up?
Adam.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it depends on what type of feedback it is. So if I'm giving feedback to a student, I just usually issue it out then and there and don't really think a lot back on it. If it's coming back towards me, I'll sometimes spend a little bit more time thinking about that feedback and if I want to implement it, and if so, how.
Yeah, because it's longer during test weeks than it is during homework weeks, right? Homeworks are usually relatively quick responses to some degree, but when you get tests, then it's like, okay, wait, this, I have to explain everything.
So
So
summatives, what you're saying.
Yeah,
Summatives are going to be
summatives
more feedback. Formatives.
Yeah.
Although really the formatives should be the time where we're putting in that work of a good feedback so that those summatives have less.
that's the hope.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
I
I'm in
was
math.
gonna say, it's flipped for us. I spend 8 to 10 hours a week, the minimal contact that I had this semester. 8 to 10 hours a week, and our feedback is embedded in our exam. So when they do their exam review, they get the feedback, why the answer was right or why it was wrong.
Thank you. And so those of you that are using the Blackboard, which you should be, I would think, for most courses, most every course, if you're giving feedback in Blackboard, how often do you think your students look at that feedback in Blackboard? And like we have a scale of 1 to 5, you could type the number in the chat, or you could put your hands up like we did with the Michael Scott check.
This is kind of the key question of the three, right? Out of all that time and effort that we put in, how often do you think your students on average are looking at that feedback?
I actually, the first 4 weeks of the semester, because most of my students are brand new, I make them, at least the ones that are in class with me that I can see, I make them open their laptops, I make grade centers, I show them where to find it,
Wow.
and I make them look at it. So all the new stuff rises to the top,
Yep.
which drives me nuts, but it does. And I look at all those things you have, you can look at their grade center and figure out how long it's been since they've been in there based on how long that list is.
True.
Yep.
And I just try to get them into the habit that they should be in regularly.
I'm
That's
going to assume
fantastic.
based on Tracy's answer, nursing is very high. It's because you've created a culture like Erica of looking at the feedback. This is very important to the teaching process. Is that true, Tracy?
That's true. First semester it's probably a little bit lower because we're trying to teach them to do it, but by fourth semester they see their grade pop up and then they go directly to the assignment and open that rubric to look for the information.
But I think even students who have been at Blackhawk for a semester or two it's not super easy to see where to click to get into that feedback. It's not very intuitive, which a lot of things with Blackboard are very user friendly, but it takes a few clicks, regardless of where you access it to view that feedback. So, yeah.
It is way easier in Ultra though than it
Okay.
was. Original was absolutely horrible.
We will put that on the positive side.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yes.
So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Do you do comments per question or per assignment? Do you have like broke out questions that you can comment each one on?
I don't comment per question. I have auto feedback on some of them.
Okay,
But I usually leave my feedback
at the end.
At the end.
As a summative of everything kind of
Yeah.
thing, okay.
and part of that is their first semester, right? I try and kind of, what's the word, scaffold in, like, okay, I want you to look at it. And I know the one place you're gonna see it is gonna be the end of it. So
Right.
let's start there. And then as they forward, then they can learn about some of those other places.
Yeah, because I have been grading differently this semester because of the fact that I have per question responses and overall responses. And so on my tests, I give feedback on each question at the question level. But then on the homeworks, I just give one big long feedback of the entire assignment and that's it. And right now I don't know whether the students look at them the same way or not.
do you teach them how to see?
I have not, because this is literally the first semester that I've done it this way. So I don't know. I haven't even tried to explain it yet because I just want to see what's happening first. And then if it is something I need to worry about or think about, then I'll spend time on it. But what I've discovered for math anyways, the students will only look at the comments when they get a bad grade.
Mhm.
So
Right.
if they get, if they get something below the grade they're looking for, then they go to the comments and see this is where they went wrong.
In that situation, what I would do is probably make 5 minutes and say, hey, let's take 5 minutes and let's look at the feedback from before. So you create that environment and that
Yeah.
culture within there. So just a thought. just
It's probably a
as we
good
say
idea.
that,
Yeah.
All right, Amber.
All
Let's
right, so
roll.
I know we know that the general definition of feedback. We're doing it every week. We're giving it to our students all the time. But I think this breakdown is really helpful and kind of a way to initiate our conversations here today too. So in terms of education, our feedback should be refined to that gap, right? Where the students are performing at, but yet they're not meeting that desired goal. They're not addressing one of those key outcomes or skills. They're not at the level that is expected, right? And we need to give them that feedback that allows them to have modifications for their additional future attempts to improve their performance, right? So it should be a message, kind of like a data point. It's not the grade yet, right? Not the final judgment. We should identify what that gap is, compare their current performance to where we would like them to be, right? Against our criteria, against our learning outcomes, our key skills that are being assessed within that assessment. And then the ultimate purpose is for the learner to be able to utilize that, right? Our feedback should be hopefully driving a learning process and correcting that future performance for students. Hopefully, ideally, right?
Good feedback is a high impact practice. Like we had earlier some research done by John Hattie, and he did this thing on these impactful study in all these different schools all over the world. And the goal was high impact was 1.0, and like the highest impact was 1.0 and higher. Feedback's at 0.7, so it's a little less than 1, but still really high impact. Lecture is 0.62. And so like the impact of lecture is less than feedback. So like feedback's really important for your students as they progress through learning.
Mhm.
We'll
Yeah, this
talk
is a
about that
screenshot
in Betty's book on
from
December 18th.
Yeah.
But that's just a little preview.
Mhm. This is a screenshot from one of our sources. I mean, the formatting of it doesn't look great, but how can teachers learn to give and receive feedback in an appropriate and time manner? So like, what were some of the best practices for how teachers can give feedback, right? And what they really emphasized was not just giving the feedback, but like how students are receiving the feedback and what they're doing with it, right? Ultimately. So as teachers, we see feedback as, corrections, criticism, comments, clarifications, right? For students, unless it includes like where to go next information, they're not gonna, it's not gonna be useful for them. Like it should be guiding for them. So this feedback should redirect learning as we focus on them mastering those identified outcomes and identified skills. Yeah, making it impactful, I guess is what this is saying. Do you have anything to add to that, Nick?
I was just thinking about like when like right now I'm coaching soccer in the evenings, and like last night we had a game. When I have a player come out and I talk to him, I say, "Hey, just great job." I say, "You did a great job because I saw what we did in practice, and you were moving the ball this way, and that guy was moving in that direction. I can see that you're learning. What I need you to do next is this, this, and this." That's feedback. In the past, I've been taught if you're going to do a negative, go positive, negative, positive. Give them the sandwich of positive, negative, positive sandwich. So there's different ways you can do that, but I don't want to say great job. You got this. I want to give a rationale of why they got it and what they could do better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now this slide is a lot of my own perceptions too, and kind of some of my understandings as I taught over the years too. But I really started to think of what were students' perceptions when they were receiving my feedback based on what I was doing, right? Like some of us are really great at accepting feedback, especially constructive feedback, and others have a difficult time with doing that, right? And what is our feedback saying? So we're going to go into those 4 T's still eventually, but does your feedback highlight all the things they did wrong? And we're asking, should it? I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer here, but I would have a worksheet where if a student got 20 things wrong, I had 20 red circles highlighted on that piece of paper. And then I would make a comment to them and I would say, see what you did wrong here. You can redo this. This is a formative piece of work. Let's meet, let's talk. I'll help kind of like reteach it. But as I handed that paper back to them, I thought to myself, what did that piece of paper say to them? They probably felt pretty bad about themselves, right? They look at it and they look at all those errors and all those mistakes. How does that reception of the feedback to the student? Okay. Could I have highlighted maybe the first 3 instances and then just said, this carries through your whole piece of paper, right? Like, let's talk about this. Let's clarify this for you. Does it include the right answers and should it? Again, as I was teaching early on, I would put right answers all the time, especially on that formative work, thinking that it would help them to the summative work. But the more I thought about it, the more I said to myself, should I be giving that right answer, or should I let them be coming to that understanding themselves, correcting it themselves, and then learning from it rather than me giving them the answer, right? And then additionally, this is just a very open-ended question. Do you allow your students to redo work, right, based on feedback? So for me, my philosophy was formative work, absolutely, especially if you're really struggling with it. Summative work, I mean, there were exceptions to the rule, but in general, I didn't, because it was so scaffolded and guided and structured for them to get there that I did everything in my power to make them succeed. They had to kind of meet me halfway and do the work and effort on the summative assessments. But I mean, we can have a little bit of an open-ended discussion. Like, what are some of our principles, ideas, philosophies? What do we think when it comes to these?
Well, I teach mostly first semester students who are below the reading level that's required by the college, and I give virtually everything except the final exam can be redone at least once. And how I have Blackboard set up for like a multiple choice test or something like that is after their first attempt, they can look at it and they can see which ones they got wrong, but it does not give them the right answer. And I teach them how to go back through and say, okay, so for number 3, you picked D and that was wrong. So then you can critically think about, okay, so if D was wrong, what's the best choice out of the remaining 3 or whatever it happens to be. And I've actually had comments back from students on their course evaluations that they learned a lot from that process. The auto feedback gives them some guidance, but it doesn't give them the right answer. And those students who've taken, they're not required to take the second attempt. That's totally up to them. Yep. But students who do it and look at the feedback have found it to be a very positive experience. And I know that's not possible with all subjects and all courses, but it does work for my group, and it helps them build confidence about their ability to be successful.
I think that's important, what you just said. You've identified what works for your group and your set of students, right? Both for you as an instructor and for the students, and it's impactful, and you've got evidence that proves that. Did you set up the assessment settings to where it wouldn't show the correct answers then in Blackboard?
Yep, they can't
That's
see
awesome. Yeah, anybody else? Thank you. That's awesome.
In the nursing program, it's kind of a step-by-step process. First, second, and third semesters, they are able to redo one assignment. They don't get redos on exams. One assignment if it's below 80%. In fourth semester, there's not that option to redo assignments. Okay. Because at that point, as they're getting ready to graduate, they need to understand doing things correctly and timely, correctly, and succinctly in that first attempt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. It's really hard, I think. My last thing is to write a guiding comment, right? Like where you're not giving the answer, you're guiding the learning, you're trying to give some next steps, but not just giving the answer and doing the learning for the students. Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Yeah, so the communication expectations that you can set the tone within the course, the Blackboard course that we have up here, the communication document from the start here, which is kind of the universal approach we took when we went to Ultra from original. The bottom part is that RSI part, the regular and substantive interaction. And that's a good place where you could tell the students how they're going to get feedback and when they're going to get feedback. You could also, even if you wanted to go as far as take an image from a student preview and show what feedback looks like and how to do that, how to check that within a course. But that's an area where you can start to tell students how feedback is going to be provided. Maybe you're going to say after a test, we'll have that provided within 48 hours. That's pretty quick. Maybe it's, I know I saw Marshall's face as I was saying that. In the K-12 world, we kind of had to move quick like this. Here you got them 2 or 3 times a week, so it's a little different. So that's just a reminder that is in the start here in that communications document. Next, in Ultra, I just wanted to take your eyes up here and see that feedback. What we have now, you do have, and I know Anne has been working through using the video recording. So you can actually video record yourself or do audio recordings of yourself giving that feedback. Sometimes when we type out that feedback, the tone can be wrong and taken wrong by the student. So that might be a good way so they can hear your voice and hear your tone, but also see your facial expressions as you're giving that feedback. I know that there's currently some issues with that Anne knows more about that we're trying to get resolved with Blackboard. Like you have to step out of it and come back in because it glitches out, but Blackboard knows about that. It's in the process of getting fixed. I'm sure it will get fixed, but that's an option that you have there. The other thing that you have down there is if you type something in, you can then hand it over to the AI writing tools and the AI will smooth it out also and give you different possibilities for what that would be like. So it's like having the co-pilot right within your feedback area. Now, I didn't see the AI writing tools on like a journal rating area, but I did see it on assignments. So when I had a rubric or something like that, I know I saw the AI writing tools. I was checking different things the other day with that. So if you did an assignment, you could use those AI writing tools. It's just like using Copilot. On the next screen, I have a sample. So I wrote, this is a fantastic reflection. Did you consider talking to accounting instructor at the local college for their, this was from a FQAS course. And on the bottom, the AI writing tool rewrote it how it would suggest that I write it. So
I used it with a rubric.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it was like this long. It summarized the rubric and I'm like, oh God, my students would get 2 lines into that and they should up. I mean.
So I would probably tell it to like minimize it to 50 words.
It was a lot.
More than 2 lines.
Well, yeah.
22 words. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a video here that Amber, we got to make sure we turn on our sound quality.
Perfect. Doing it right now. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, this is a part of Ava, which is brand new. And it's AI assistance in Blackboard. So there's other areas to it, but this is just kind of like, let me know if you can hear the sound. It's a little tutorial overview of it.
Grading is essential, but writing detailed overall feedback for every student can be time-consuming. Blackboard now features Ava-assisted feedback with AI-powered capabilities to summarize and rewrite feedback. Summarize feedback. The Ava Summarize option allows you to generate a high-quality head start on overall feedback when using the flexible grading interface. This smart tool leverages AI to analyze the entire evaluated rubric, the criteria, the performance levels you selected, and all the criterion level comments you've provided. It then synthesizes everything into an overall piece of feedback that's cohesive and professional. You're always in complete control. You can accept the suggestion and then easily edit it to add your personal touch or add additional clarity. You can reject it and craft your own, or you can regenerate for a brand new alternative. Rewrite feedback. Ava-assisted feedback can also help you to articulate your feedback to learners. After entering your own comments, you can select Rewrite to generate a suggested version of the feedback. This helps polish what you have written whilst maintaining tone and intent. A banner clearly indicates that the suggestion is AI generated. Here again, you retain full control over the output. You can accept the suggestion as is, continue to edit after accepting the suggestion to ensure the feedback is perfect, or reject the suggestion should you want to stick with your original. Save time on drafting while delivering more consistent and meaningful feedback to every student with AVA-assisted feedback in Blackboard. This is the first AVA capability to be added to the platform. Stay tuned to Roadmap webinars for more details on what's to come.
Can I throw in a comment?
Erica will throw in a comment.
Yes.
I have found that one of the tricks to teaching is finding ways to save time. And what I've done is I've created a document with common comments and feedback for students for common problems on regular assignments. And I do a lot of copy and
Yep.
pasting. I'm like, oh,
Yep.
yep, they missed this on
Yes.
that assignment. I can put that in that comment. The other thing has completely escaped my mind at this point, so I'll come back to it. But I found that that really cuts down on, like, you don't have to come up with a brand new way to say it every semester.
If you wanted a variety, you also could just put that into AI and say, hey, I need a variety of ways to say this. For this assignment, and it could.
And then save that prompt and that chat too. Yeah, no, I agree, because over the years you would see patterns with the similar errors and the similar mistakes and students doing the same things. And yeah, having like that library of prompts of like feedback to just personalize once you copy and paste it, you know, like make a little bit of modifications to it is a big time saver. I totally agree.
That was the reminder I needed, Amber. So if you have, like, if they're turning in a paper and they have where you can see it, so it wouldn't be like a multiple choice or anything like that, but if they're turning in a document on the top
Toolbar.
on the toolbar, thank you, there is a library function up there where you can type in comments and store them. And you can, when you're doing a paper, you can just go up to the library, you can click on it and drop it, and it writes it in for you. I
With
know.
this toolbar right here?
I would have to.
No, it'd be the toolbar within the content box.
That's
No,
still really cool.
No,
Wow.
it
It's
is
different?
that one. I would have to get into Blackboard and show it to you, but yes,
That's
there is a
awesome.
way to do that. So like with my students, a lot of times they miss, like, they didn't double space or they didn't indent, or, you know, it's just a really common problem. I can go up there, put in my comment, and it saves it in that library. And every time I open up that way to correct a paper, boom, it's there.
Blown
That's
away.
fantastic. I did not know that. Very cool.
Student becomes the teacher.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is with annotations, right? So like as students are submitting PDF files and Word files and you're able to see it and mark it up, there are a lot of features, but I definitely did not know about that. We can underline things, we can highlight things with, you know, the color coding, we can add the comments and insert those. We can draw right over it and circle something. So that can really help pinpoint the feedback for our students, especially exactly in a certain area of the essay where they made a mistake, or, you know, like in Erica's example, double spacing. But yes, I did not know about that library. That's really cool.
So there's a few ways that you can show your students. I would probably do it in student preview, but I had to go through and probably submit some items before as I was doing that, and then save that student preview. But this is from right inside their content area as they're working through. So they could go back to that assignment and they could see that there's comments there and view the submission and see those comments. And to save time, we just took screenshots here today.
Mhm.
Wow, that person got a 0 of 15.
One of my math students.
So another view of this is from the grade book. And when you go into the grade book as a student and you go to grades, you have the list of the items that are there. And then you'd be able to also, again, hit the view the results. I believe it is on the right side.
And this is what Erica was saying. She could tell by the icons and the list and all the purple being shown here, what students have not viewed out of all of those graded items. So that's a really good way for
It actually
for
does
faculty to be
say,
able to see that.
there's like a box on there. I saw the other day where, oh, right there it is. Boom, there I am. Actually,
So if
it's
you
your
have
slide.
a student who's really struggling and you want to pinpoint and narrow down something again, you have to click on the individual student, but we are now in a faculty view here in Blackboard. When you click on that student, there it defaults to this grades tab right here. And in the status section, you can look to see if they've viewed your feedback, reviewed your feedback or not. It will simply say completed, reviewed, or not reviewed. So that's kind of nice as an instructor. So if you have a student who's struggling, say, why don't you look at some of the feedback I gave you? It could probably continue to help you throughout the coursework here. So. All right, we're finally to the 4 T's.
Oh.
Just a lot of new things about, you know, Blackboard and feedback and stuff like that. But the 4 T's of feedback, right? So timing. How long does it take? We're going to break each down, right? From the time the student submits the given assignment to when they get that feedback. The type will be the modality in which they receive the feedback, tiered, the party or the person that it's coming from, and then tailored, being personalized. We could almost, we'll talk a little bit about like a 5th T with the tone and like your temperament, right? So like, what's your disposition like as you're sending the feedback, and what is the tone of your feedback kind of saying? Because I think we've all been there. You grade 20 papers and all 20 students make the same mistake, and we get a little frustrated by it. So what is our tone saying, right?
And that 20th person doesn't get the nice feelings like the first person did.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. I'm underlining things really hard, and I'm like, oh gosh, I need to stop and take a break and take a step back here. All right, sorry, Nick.
About timing here, we got the formative and summative up there. We've been covering formative versus summative over the last month and a half as we've been doing these FQAS foundations. But understanding formative, we're giving feedback that could be very quick. When we're having an ultra, they could take a quiz and then have that feedback immediately. It could also be the day-to-day interactions as you're working with people. You're having a conversation. You're teaching in front of folks. I hate to use the word lecture, but you're teaching in front of people, and as you see their facial expressions, that's a form of feedback that I'm getting, and then I'm maybe adjusting my teaching to make sure that they all understand that. And then you get to the summatives, and I was kind of talking about this a little earlier with the communication document. You know, those summatives might take a longer time for you to grade, so therefore that feedback might be as timely as a formative assessment would be. So like when I was at Milton, when I was teaching resume building, it would take me, I get 200 resumes at once, and like that's 20 minutes of resume to look through. It's going to take me a while, so I would make sure they know, hey, this grade's not going to be in there for a while, but we're going to keep moving on, and as I get them done, you'll be getting them and then we'll make updates as a group. So I'm just being a good communicator and creating that culture of communication. Moving on there, Amber. And one of the things that you can use within your Ultra course to have timely feedback on items, but this is not graded, would be knowledge checks. So if I were to show a video within my online course, I would have some form of knowledge check that's completed afterwards where I can kind of address and look at the data. I don't always like that data because it's not graded and it's not necessarily person specific, it's more specific. But so then I might create a quiz after that instead to get that kind of feedback. Which you moved on to that slide, so I had that perfect timing. So, but those are different ways of the feedback is timely feedback.
Mm-hmm.
You can go ahead. I think I covered that.
Yes. Okay. So the modality, the type rather, of the feedback that you're sharing, it's not to say you do all of these at once, but like based on the type of assessment, based on the type of feedback that you want to give, each can kind of serve a purpose. Are you providing it with text or a visual for students? Could you do audio or video? Honestly, I think these save you a lot of time. I know Nick said Anne was really trying it out. For a summative assessment, I would use this the most, and students really they shared with me that they really appreciated it because they were able to hear what my tone was like, right, and kind of see my facial expression as well, and that the video was like way better to engage with than just reading, you know, like a paragraph of chunk of text. So for summatives, I definitely used the audio and video modality and type of feedback. Then for text, that was usually the formative work. And sometimes I would even use like a speech to text tool just to kind of save me some time there if I could. Or I would copy and paste types of feedback that I gave very often. I did that to save myself some time too.
I will give a kudos to Ann there because I do love that she is trying to do that video feedback because she is in a online course most of the time. And so that instead of them having to read stuff all the time, they're getting a different feel from the instructor in that I think it's all online course. So that's a good thing.
We used to have a speech instructor who gave all of her feedback via video. But it was only if you got your paper in by the due date or your speech ready for the due date. After that, you just got a few, you got comments in text. But she said that actually was an encouragement for students to get their work in on time because they wanted that video feedback. They really loved it. They said it was great. It was Christine. Yeah. So that can be kind of a motivator.
As we move on to tiered feedback here, there's 3 different kind of feedback we have up there. It could be the instructor giving feedback. It could be another student giving the feedback, or it could be a feedback through their own self-reflection and then kind of giving feedback to themselves. So like today, we understand instructor feedback. I'll talk peer feedback. I was out at the JEC, the electrical apprenticeship, and I'm observing a faculty member out there. And if they were bending pipes to put the electrical through. And so there was one gentleman that was really struggling with the topic, and Brad, who was the instructor, was trying to explain it to him. And as the student was trying to do something, another student came up, no, I want to show you how to do this because I feel like you're getting frustrated. And so he walked him through it step by step and gave him the feedback. It still took a while to get there, but then I saw other students walk up and say, hey, I was wondering that same thing. I didn't know what to do either. And I'm glad you asked the question, and other student came up and helped. And Brad was like, this is perfect. Because the students becoming the teacher there, and they're never going to forget that as they've been teaching it. So it was really a beautiful thing. I even said, you got to say thank you to that student that was asking all the questions, that had all the problems, because like he was just creating an environment in there where all the other students that didn't want to ask the question were still learning it, and then would feel more comfortable asking questions also. The other one is like now maybe that student goes back and that self-reflection, they reflect on the process they went through and give themselves feedback on the learning they did. And so like that could be something you could do within a journal. That could be a conversation between the instructor and the student. So that's the tiered feedback.
Mm-hmm.
I like to bring those live real examples. It's just great that it was this right today. It was awesome.
Okay, the next one is tailored and personalized. And this is the one that I found most difficult for me, but I think it resonates with students. So the more you engage with your students, the more you learn about them, you can more personalize their feedback to their future career, right? Like a lot of us know exactly what field of work they're going to be going into, but also based on their interests, right? And if you're doing some of those self-reflections and learning about your students, you can learn about them through that. We could also learn about your students through surveys, and we're going to talk about that once more towards the end. Especially in a MyEd online, MyEd Choice online format, it's a little bit harder to get to know your students, right? So you could do a survey halfway through the semester just to see how things are going, get some feedback. And I think students really value knowing that you want to know their feedback, that you're asking for it. And especially if you end up changing some of your teaching practices or you address something that, hey, I saw this on 5 different surveys, so I'm going to go in this direction and incorporate it because a lot of us have questions or are struggling in this area, then that allows them to know that you in return value their feedback.
I've seen a lot of instructors do that. This is going to be easier to know those students than some of the program specific people, Enid, Tracy, Adam, Tony. They're going to know where their students, what program they're going into, and they can really get that feedback quickly. I watched Brad today say, hey, in the field, you're going to need to know this. And so we got to make sure that you have this, and this down, and you don't have this down right now. So it's a direct feedback for his future. I've seen Tony do that in the past also when I was out there in the EPD area, watching people climb poles and do wild stunts while hanging from high heights. So, yes.
That metacognition piece again, where students are self-reflecting and self-assessing, that's very difficult for a lot of students. But if they're able to identify like a learning goal early on and what career they plan to work in, they can share a little bit of their personal lives. So a good example of this is at the K-12 school where I was at, I was in charge of academic career planning for the high school. And so we had to do what are called SMART goals. And so you had to make a goal that was, specific, measurable, attainable. It's an acronym where all these components have to be fulfilled. And so I asked students to make one academic related SMART goal, of course, by identifying like what their weakest subject was, what they needed to work on, etc. But then I also asked them to make one personal related goal. And I said it could be with saving money, getting a job, right? All of these examples that I provided to them. And I learned a lot about my students through that. In fact, I didn't know some of the personal burdens that they had, what was going on in their personal life until I kind of read through some of those goals, which was really interesting. And then you can apply it to personalize, right? So you can address their growth and where they started and, what they've gotten to, the content knowledge they've acquired. You can relate it to those goals or connect it to those future career plans that they have.
Oh, tone's perfect for me. Because my tone can totally be off a lot.
What?
Yeah,
No.
totally. So I use AI to correct my tone in most emails now.
That's me slapping him upside the head, but go ahead.
So the tone, you gotta have some balance there. So make sure those positive remarks, I'm looking at this. We don't want to be over positive. Like we want to make sure that we give a good balance in there of both positive and what they need to improve, being constructive. But also consider how you say things, especially in today's world where everything can be screenshot and put out there for others. I really work hard to also, I'm going to throw this out there to make sure when you were talking about this, Erica, earlier, it's like having different forms of feedback, because I don't want the same 5 students to get their buddies to like have the same feedback, and then they're going to be like, it does, like, there's no personalization there. That goes back to a little earlier. So watch your tone, be positive, but make sure it's constructive. Use the old positive, negative, positive if you need to.
Yeah. And then one of the last pieces that we have here is the power of student feedback. Like I said, right? What are your students saying? And it doesn't have to just be at the end of the course, because by then it might be too late to incorporate that into the rest of class, right? Or it might be too late it could have been a great idea on how to make an improvement within your course. And now it has to wait until the next semester with a whole new group of students. So we kind of modeled doing a mood check, checking the temperature of your students. And it's not that you have to do this every day by any means, but at critical junctures within the semester. Hey, we're halfway through. We're 8 weeks in. How's everybody doing? Are we stressed? How are we feeling? Are things going okay for us? What are we struggling with? Like, I get it. It's tough. We gotta push through. And I would say that to my students a lot. 2 weeks until winter break. We can do this, student questions. And Nick said this too, sharing student questions with the class. I would stop in the midst of instruction, just like he said, and say, hey, everybody, this student had a great question. Let's share it. Thank you very much. Because chances are other students have that exact same question, just like Nick said. Or I would start class the next day with a question, or I would make sure to incorporate the answer to that question in my instructions from then on. Those student survey responses and then assessment results also are a form of feedback. How are students performing, and are they utilizing some feedback from previous assignments? If we can, how can they incorporate it? That kind of stuff.
I would get
Yes.
feedback in entry tickets and exit tickets also, but sometimes if it was a longer class, I'd say, hey, let's take 5 minutes to send me an email quick. Tell me what you learned, or if there's any questions that I can fix my teaching in the second half of this class, and then take 10 minutes to yourself. And that was very effective. I was able to really quickly change the course of my class as I saw those responses come in.
Yeah, and Tony told me that he did this just on paper and pencil one day with his students. And I think that was a really impactful practice that he did too. Just like write down What's one thing that's going well? What's one thing that you're struggling with? What's one big question that you still have that you don't know the answer to? And he said, I'm going to look at these. I'm going to take some time to reflect on them a little bit, and then I'm going to share my overall results with you and how it's going to change things for us. So yeah, that's really great. But yeah, this is that same slide with the mood check. You could provide this to your students halfway through the semester. Feel free to copy it. Feel free to use it. We also have just enough time maybe to show you a little bit of, and maybe you already know this, maybe you've used it, but I feel like forms are not used in Blackboard as often, a form, but they are helpful, and it's a quick and easy way to just build a survey right within your course, especially halfway through the semester. So this is what a form ends up looking like. And you do go to the, purple plus sign and you create a form. And this little icon here, I'll show you what I started so far, allows the responses to be anonymous. You do have to have a due date attached to it though, even if those responses are anonymous, but you get a lot of different types of questions that you can provide to your students. There's a Likert scale. There's a multiple choice question. There's essay, short answer response type questions. We can allow them to add some final thoughts here at the end. And then you can see that their submissions are anonymous. I do want to go into edit one because I didn't see this right at the start. I felt like a little bit slow and dumb. I was like, where do I go to add a question? I didn't see like add a question. So when you see that purple plus sign here, or even underneath each and every single question, you can click on that and you can add a question, right? So these are all the choices. I can reuse a question, right? I can just simply add text with like instructions. So very similar to what you see, like on a quiz or a test, but it's a form instead. So kind of a whole nother category, and it's really quick and easy to just make a survey for your students. So
Personalize it to those students. I think that's fantastic.
gracias. Thank you. This slideshow was in Spanish originally, and I kept that. But yeah, we have some CETL resources here for you. We have that survey, which I'm also, see if I still have it. That survey's embedded there. The survey link just went in the chat. So it's in the session resource area. It's in the presentation itself. We would really appreciate if you took just a couple minutes to take that survey. But any other questions, feedback, anything?